Good evening. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Inspiration webinar. Inspiration Software is the embroidery software line of G7 Solutions and Designs in Machine Embroidery. Our Inspiration Software line includes My Block Piecer, My Quilt Embellisher, My Quilt Planner, Word Art and Stitches, Stitch Snapshots, Perfect Embroidery Pro, and Perfect Stitch Viewer. Tonight's webinar features our My Block Piecer and My Quilt Embellisher, and it is going to present Tamara's Quilt Block Challenge. We have a wonderful team assisting us tonight. Tech support team of Nancy R., Chris L., Dory N., and of course Tamara Evans, our inspiration consultant, who I will switch over to. And again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory, and welcome everyone. A month or so ago, I issued a challenge for everyone to send me blocks, and I did have a fairly good response from people that wanted to know how to make the block in My Block Piecer that they'd seen or whatever. So I am going to keep the website open, and if you'll notice here, it is blockchallenge@gmail.com. Actually, it's not a website, the email open. And I think this could be a fun thing to do periodically. If you have a block that you're trying to create in My Block Piecer and are having difficulties with, feel free to send it, and we might include it in one of the future webinars. But for now, let's go look at some of the things that we got. I'm going to minimize this. Well, actually, I'm going to show you the first design that we're going to work on tonight. Let me go back a couple. Here we go. Isn't that cute? It's a little puppy block. Now, this is a very easy block to create, and the method I'm going to teach you tonight involves using blocks that are already in the software. The artwork is already created. You don't have to use your own or make your own. You just manipulate what's there. So let's start with My Block Piecer. I am going to launch the software here, and let's minimize that. But what I do want to have up is a, hang on one second, because I want to be able to see this block in Block Challenge. There we go. And click on that. Now, this is the way I do it when I'm working on it at home. I bring it up in my Windows Explorer, and I have my screen set so that I see the block over here on the right-hand side. Then I open My Block Piecer, and I make sure that it's not a full screen view, which I would get if I clicked here, but I can watch the block as I create it. So I have a go-by, a guide to what I'm going to create. So the first thing we're going to do before we open a file or do anything is go into our tools and select General Options. In General Options, if we go to our grid, we have the option to snap to grid. And I want that checked. I have a 1/2 inch grid set up, and I'm in inches, which I'll show you in a second how to do that. I live in the imperial world. I don't think in metric. If you do, by all means, make yours metric, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I like inches because that's the way I think, and I understand those measurements. So I will say OK to make that change happen. Then I will open up a new document. Okay, so a new file here. If you want to change between metric and inches, all you need to do is take your cursor up onto the ruler, right-click, and say metric. Then you're in metric. And if you'd rather be in inches, put it in inches. You are not limited to either one, and it's that easy to switch back and forth. And most of your measurements will reflect that. Not all of them. If you're in inches, most of them will reflect inches. So let's get started. Here's this cute little puppy dog. Now, the easiest way to do this is to go to my block library. And I'm going to select a block. And let's go to, I want to be in Simple 9-patch, because if you look at this block over here, it's a 9-patch. There's 3 columns and 3 rows. It's a basic 9-patch. So if we go to 9-patch and expand on that, then I'm just going to go to Simple 9-patch because I've already done the homework here, and select a block. And the first block I want to select is called Eccentric Star. The reason I picked this one is I counted in this block the number of half-square triangles. And half-square triangle, here's my square, and half of it's a triangle on each side. That's why it's called a half-square triangle, for those of you who may not be familiar with quilting terminology. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not that one, 7 out of 9 patches are half-square triangles. So the eccentric block has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's pick that one. And then I can select a size for it if I want to. And I'm going to make this a 6 by 6 block. And click that and say OK. Now it brings up artwork on my screen. And my artwork is in 2 colors, which works with the block that I'm looking at. And then I simply start on one corner over here and rotate my half-square triangle so it matches the half-square triangle on the puppy dog. So I'm going to select this one, and there's a couple of ways to do that. I can click on one side, and you notice the stripes indicate it's selected. Hold my Control key down, click on the other side, and now I've got stripes all the way through it, so I know the whole block is selected. And I'm going to rotate it so that the lighter color is in the corner. So we pick our rotate tool right here, click, click, and now my lighter color is in the corner, my darker color is toward the inside, and I'm good. Then I'll select my next patch, my next square. The other way to select it, besides holding the Control key and clicking, is just to drag a box like this around that square. And now you see both of them are selected. Then I can rotate that until the blue is, oops, I went too far. We'll go back right there. Okay, so I've got a half-square triangle. These are going the same direction. Then the bottom one is going in a different direction. So I'll select that and rotate it, click, click, to where it's done. Then we'll just continue with that process. Select and rotate, right or left, whichever is more convenient. Now, this block, if I look over here, the center block is all the darker color. So all I have to do there is select it and click on the darker color to change its color. All right, then we'll go up to the top and select this block and rotate it again. So it's just the opposite. You could also change the colors on the squares, but this makes it a little easier, or you know, it's just your preference, whichever is easier for you. This block I'm going to also rotate now. Do the bottom of his ear over here. Oops, too far. Back up. Then we'll select this patch and rotate it. And there you go. Now, all I have left is this one at the top. And you see over here, this is a solid block, a solid square. It's not a half-square triangle. That's okay. I'm going to select it and combine it using my combine tool. And if y'all have listened to any of my webinars, you know that combine is one of my most favorite tools. So click on Combine. It makes it all one color, and now it's a solid square. And there you go. I have my little puppy dog all set up. I could change the colors to match the patches. I could audition fabric, and we'll do that later if we have time. But one thing I do want to show you that is a new feature of the software. You see, even though this block is combined, I still have a line going through there. I've got a black outline around all of my patches. I want to get rid of that. So I just select the whole block. I can do it by dragging a box around it. I can just do a Control-A to select all, whatever your preference is. And it brings us up to our artwork properties. In our artwork properties, and if you haven't done your update since May, you need to do it now, your artwork properties, it just used to be fill or an outline. Ours is a fill because we brought in a block from our block library. And the opacity, or the amount of opaqueness, whether you can see through it or not, it's 100%, so you can't see through it. And the stroke width, this is the outline that we're seeing around our patches. If you change that to 0 and uncheck pixels and apply, now when we look at our block, we just see the artwork without an outline around it. And I kind of like that better, especially if I'm trying to match something up or whatever. Now, let's take that. We'll select the entire block. We will go to the Workflow tool, and then click on Auto Build, and let's see what happens. And sure enough, it resorted my block, or arranged it in 3 different units, which is typical for a 9 patch. I'm going to go ahead and sort the numbers at this point because I like them to be in numerical order in the way that they are stitched. So let's click Sort Numbers. And no, we haven't run the cutter tool yet, so we can change them at this point. And now I can look at it and go piece 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, then 6 to 7, 8, 9, and 10, then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, let's do a preview. Here is my first hooping. You notice I have 2 designs. The first hooping stitches the 3 columns. The second hooping puts those 3 rows together. And you can choose as to whether you want to hoop again and put them together or just stitch them with your sewing machine. Entirely up to you. But you have the option to do the entire thing in the hoop. And at this point we would save it and select it to be puppy, whatever, so we have our complete file, which you can see in an earlier webinar. So that's one way to do the puppy. Let me show you a different method that's very similar. Let's open up a new file. And I want to go to a simple, select Simple 9 patch again. It brings me back up to where I was. But this time, I'm going to use this double X. And before we had 7 half square triangles. In this one we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I don't have as many as I need, which sometimes you will run into. And I'll show you how to overcome that obstacle. So we're going to select the double X. Click OK. And you notice I didn't resize that. I could do that right now if I want to, or I could have done it when I selected it from the grid, from the block library. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 6 inches because that's how big I want my block to be, and apply that. And now, so you can do it before or after, it matters not. Now it's just a matter of changing our blocks. So let's do this again. I could take and rotate the whole thing 45 degrees. I'm sorry, actually 90 degrees. And now this block up here is a full square. This is a full square. The only one that's not a half square triangle that needs to be is this patch right down here. So let's start from here and we'll just go across. I'm going to select this block and rotate it, bump, bump, with my rotate tool so that the center stays the same place, they're all aligned, everything works out just fine. Then my next block is already exactly how it needs to be. And if I come down to the side, this block here is where it needs to be. Then we'll go back across. I'm kind of working a little bit differently this time. And I select the center block. That needs to be all blue. So I just come down here to the bottom, right-click, and change that to the dark color, the blue. Then I'm going to come across to this patch right here. And it needs to rotate to the right 2 clicks. And now I'm almost there. The only thing that I'm missing is this bottom triangle. So I'm just going to click that, and I can right-click, and delete it. Then take one of my half-square triangles, and this is the way I like to move things, especially if I want them aligned perfectly. I am going to right-click, copy that, right-click, paste it, and then use Control-Shift and my arrows on my keyboard to move it down. Control-Shift makes bigger movements. Okay, so I move that down. Now, if I zoom in a little bit, I know it's aligned over here because this was aligned and that's aligned. And I can just use my Control key and the arrow keys to do a small movement to get it back in line where it's supposed to be. Then simply select that patch and rotate it twice, and there you go. We have our little puppy dog. So 2 different ways to do it. You can just rotate them and combine, or you can rotate, copy, and move. And these are very simple ways. It's very accurate. If I select this again and take it to my workflow tool right here, workflow, and do auto build, there you go. Sort numbers, yes, and preview it. I have again 2 designs. So either one of those ways work just fine. And I'm going to pause right here and ask Dory if we have any questions so far. I think I'll take that as a no.
No, we don't. We don't. The only one, we did get one question. And that one question is, this is really interesting, because I never thought about this. You can put that puppy dog picture on the side.
Yeah.
So that
you can, because you can't bring it in as a backdrop. I mean, you could bring it in as a backdrop, but let me show you what happens. When we bring in a block from our library, and I show the backdrop, let me get rid of this. Here's my backdrop. It's the block I originally brought in at the size I brought it in at. And if I bring this puppy up as a backdrop and then bring a block in, he's going to be overwritten by the block I bring in. So that's why I made my screen smaller and put him on the side, so I could still look at him. You could also print it if you want to, or, you know, burn it into your mind and, you know, memorize exactly how everyone turns. But I really need a go-by, you know, something to show me exactly which way I want to turn each.
I like your trick of putting it on the side.
Thanks. All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Each one of these gets a little bit more difficult, but none of them are hard. So the next one, we'll open up a new page. And I also want to come over here and show you our new block. This is actually 1/4 of a hunter star block. It could be the block, it could be 1/4 of it, but when they all get put together, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, it will work. And we had this question a long time ago, I think on in the forum, probably on how to make it. So here's what we're going to do. We put that over here so I can see it. Then I go back into my block piecer, and let's find a block that'll work for that. And some of this takes a little bit of, pardon the pun, hunting. You know, hunter, star hunting. Thank you. So we'll go into our block catalog, because the artwork is already done for us. We don't have to create it from scratch. They all match up. We know they work. So it makes it a little bit easier. So in this one, I'm going to go to, it's not a simple 9 patch. I wrote down the name, but I forgot to write down what directory it's in. So here's all I have to do is type in spinning. It's spinning star number 2. But if I just type in spinning, I think I'll get to it, and then do my down arrow. That's spinning star number 1. There's spinning star number 2. So let's select that one. Again, I'm going to determine the size, and you can make it whatever you want to, and click OK. Now, the reason I picked this block is because you see in the hunter star, I've got a diagonal line straight through that block. And then I have this, to me, these 2 patches right here look a lot like this red patch. That would be 2 half-square triangles, kind of, in a block. So I thought this one would be appropriate. Now, we're going to play with this and change the colors to make our block. So I'm going to start in the upper left-hand corner and click on this peach color and hold my control key down, click on the other peach color, and change their color to red. Oops, sorry, I did a right click instead, or a left click instead of a right click. Change their color to, yes, I right click on the red, it changes it to red, and then I combine them because I want that to be one patch. All right. Then I'm going to take the 2 opposite these 2 patches. Just hold the control key down while you click on it, and let's change those to a pink. And I'm going to add a pink color here to match the block. Let's do this color. And you can play around with it. I'm going to change them to that color and combine them. Now, I could combine them and then change them. It really doesn't matter the order in which you choose to do that. It just matters that you do both things. All right. Now, let's move on down to the opposite corner and do the same thing. Select these 2, combine them, and change the color. Then I'm going to select these 2, combine them, and change the color. Okay, so now I've got my red and kind of a lighter pinkish red, and my red and a lighter pinkish red. Then I want to work on the center here, where we have these 2 patches. So if I take this, and this is going the wrong way. So if I click on these 2 with my control key held down, and I rotate that block, and I do the same on this side, hold my control key down and rotate. I'm almost there. Then if I do the same here and rotate, oh, I've got that side. Ooh, I need to rotate this one again, which it just takes playing with it until you get the result you're looking for. And there you go. I'm only looking at the center section here. So I've got this pink that's made up of 3 half-square triangles in my block. So I'm taking those and we'll make them, a lighter pink. Let's do I'm going to change color number 4 to a lighter pink. I'll do that one and say OK. And change the color and combine them. So now I've combined 3 patches for that one. Take these 3 patches and let's create a new color that's even lighter. And of course, you know, it'll depend on the block that you're trying to mimic as to what shades you use. I'm just trying to make it look like the other block. And we will combine them and right-click to change the color. And now we've got this whole section going through the center, which makes it very simple to select everything that's left in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to click, 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 combine those so it makes it all one color, and we'll make it blue. Then do the same thing at the bottom. Click, 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 combine them, and make it blue. Now, if we get rid of those lines again, because those bug me when I've got a larger patch than what it's showing me, because this whole blue diamond is its own patch, all right? So I'm going to select my entire block, go to my art, which brings up my artwork tool in the properties over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to get rid of the stroke, which means the outline around it. And you can make that really wide if you ever need to do that, but you can get rid of it completely if you just make it 0 and apply. So now those look pretty similar. You could finesse the colors if you want to, but it works. Now let's see what happens when we try and create this block. I'm going to select the whole thing either by dragging a box around it or do Control-A. Go to my workflow tool. It brings it up on my screen. And when I'm playing with things, I have made this great big hoop called the X hoop that is like 16 by 16, so I don't have to worry about fitting it in a hoop size. I just want to see if it's going to work. And I can change that to something, this is a 6 by 6 block. I can change that to my 200 by 200 hoop, which is represented by the white space behind the block, and that looks like it'll fit nicely. And then auto build. Ooh, no automatic solution found. Let's see what we need to do. I'm going to close out of here and go back, and let's select each patch. There's one patch. That's all one piece of artwork. The other patch is all just one piece of artwork. We may need to
Tamara, you have gone radio silence on the rest of us. Jiggle your cords, please.
okay,
There you
sorry.
go.
I have to put it behind my neck. Where my problem is right here in the center, because when I click on that, it shows this is one patch, and it's not. So let's go back. I'm going to right-click to get out of there and look at my patches. Oh, something is not correct here. There's that artwork. There's that artwork. This is very curious because it looks like it's separate. Let me break that up, and I'm going to select this one and break it apart, and let's go back and take each patch and combine them. And each patch here, I'm holding down my control key while I select them and combine them. And I'm going to do a control A to select all, and then go to my workflow tool. And it's still not showing me the right number of patches. In fact, patch 1 is missing. There's patch 1, there's patch 2, 3. So this is a good lesson in diagnosing what's wrong with your file. And 8. Okay. And I'm still not sure. Dory, if you have any suggestions, I am open.
I'm not letting you sweat this one out. I am as confused as you are. However, there's got to be a way to absolutely combine the blocks in the middle to the their blue counterparts. There you go. Try and combine on that.
Okay, it is combined. Let's see. And I'm sure I did something. This program can be a little specific, as is quilting. All right. Let's see what happens if I leave them apart and we select the whole thing. We'll go to our workflow tool. Now you see each one of those are individual patches.
However, yes, and your 8 and your 9 are attached to the blues. Got it.
Right. Okay, so let's auto build. Okay, I am going to come up with a solution for this. And it may not be while we are online tonight, but we will figure it out. Combine those. Let me check this one. That is just the blue. That's perfect. This one is just the blue. That's perfect. And I know, y'all are so happy at home because I'm doing this. And this is the problem you have. So let's go to our workflow tool. Auto build, it won't build it. Let's go back and assign numbers, okay? I'm going to resort this because the way I would build it would be 1. See, it's looking at that as one thing. That is the problem. That is not one thing. So, right click, I'm going to select that and move it out of the way. There's nothing under there. I'm going to select that and move it out of the way. Nothing under there. Control Z or undo to put them back. But it may be in that spot because, all right, let's try this again. Because that's the square around it. So I'm going to do that as 1, 2, whoop, sorry, I clicked the wrong way. Left click, 3, 4, 5, 5, oh, I'm getting my left and right mixed up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now it's 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, let's, and then right click to finish that. Let's select it all again. Go to my sorting. And the numbers are already sorted in the sequence they need to be, and you notice 5 is over 1. And we will auto build, and we can't do it.
Let me check out to see what mathematically is wrong with this.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. And we will, where can we post an answer to this, Dory? On the forum?
We're going to put it on the community, and we'll post it there if anybody's interested except us.
Well, I certainly am.
I am.
Because this worked perfect. when I did it earlier. So let's move to our next block. All right, I'm going to open up a new page. And this is an interesting block that I got from Susan. I'm going to show you what it is. I thought this was really pretty. And let's bring back up my block piecer. The problem is I couldn't find a block similar enough to this. So we're going to do this one a little bit differently and hopefully with better results than the hunter's square or the hunter's block. Okay, so I'm going to go to my quilt block library. And if you notice, this is a 4-patch. There's a line down the center and across. So there's 4 segments to this. So the first place I'm going to look is in my 4-patch blocks. We'll click on 4-patch to expand it. And, wow, those are pretty complicated. I want to go to simple 4-patch, if I can say that. This has those squares in the corner. Let's select that one. And again, I'll change it to 6 by 6. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to keep that 8 by 8 because that way I have an even division. I can divide this into 2 4-inch or 4 4-inch sections. So I'll click OK. Here's my block. Now I want the checkerboards to be in the other corners, so I simply rotate it, click twice to do it 90 degrees. Now there's the red, and this one has 4 patches in it. So I'm going to, this one's perfect right now. This one in this corner, I need to rotate 90 degrees. So I'll click it twice, because each time I click rotate right or rotate left, it rotates at 45 degrees. Now, that is perfect. If I pick the colors, we'll make it look just like the other block. I'm going to change that to black. We'll just make our blue color a, not pine needle, black chrome. Okay, and change that to black. So now I have, oops, come back here. So now I have 2 blacks and 2 reds going in the right direction in each corner. But these are half square triangles, and this is kind of half of a snowball block. It's a square with 2 half square triangles in opposite corners. So I'm just going to delete these. Boing. Click delete on my keyboard, or click, right click, and click delete, either way. Now, here's something that you may not have known you could do. We can open up another block in here, and this time I'm going to pick the exquisite block because it looks in these 2 corners just like my go-by block. So I'll select it. I want it to be the same size as my existing block on my design page, which is 8 by 8, and click OK. Now, I'm just going to move it over here out of the way. And actually, the smart thing to do, let me undo that. Because I have snap to grid on, it did snap to the grid over here, but I'm going to undo and do Control-Shift with my arrow key on my keyboard and move it out of the way. Just like that. So I know it's lined up perfectly with that block. Then select this quarter of it, do Control-Shift, use my arrow keys, and scooch it back over. And in Texas, scooch is a word. And scoot in. Let's see how close I am. I think I'm kind of right on there because I've got snap to grid on. That looks good. And then actually I can take this block right here, select it, Control-Shift, use my arrow keys to move it into place. And to do fine maneuvering, because I'm a little bit off, I just use my control key. Control Shift makes it take big steps. Control takes little steps. And to where it's lined up with my grid. And there you go. But the colors are all wrong. So let's change the colors. I need black here and here. I'm holding my control key while I select those individual patches and change them to black. And then I just need to, actually I don't have to change my color there. I can leave it because it's the same color, or I could change that if I want to right here by right-clicking on my color palette at the bottom. Oh, it's the wrong color palette I selected. If I click on 12 and change it to a white or eggshell, then our block looks just the same as that. Now, at this point, I still have, if I zoom out, these other two patches left, and I'm just going to delete them. Right-click, delete. So now I've combined two different blocks into one. I brought them in at the same size and used my control keys to move it to the side, then select the pieces I want to scoot in so that they all line up perfectly. And one way that you can check that is to zoom in. And you see there's very little space between it. I think that's probably close enough, but let's try to create this block and see. So I'm going to go to Select It All, go to my Workflow tool. Ooh, but this is very large. This is an 8-inch block, and I was using my 8-inch by 8-inch hoop, which isn't quite big enough. So let's go to a bigger hoop. I'm just going to go down to my X hoop and then auto build. And it worked. Yes, that was a sigh of relief. And let's look at our preview. And we have 3 designs that this will make. The first design makes each of the diagonal corners, the top left and the bottom right. Then it makes the 4 square parts. So it does 2 of them and 2 of them. The next design will put 2 columns together. So it puts the 2 halves of the 4 square together with the diagonal square on both sides, and then the third one puts it all together. If you choose to sew that by machine, I usually do, just so I don't have to rehoop, and I'm pretty good with matching up points, but if you're not, by all means, do it in the hoop. It's very simple. Okay, so those are our 3 blocks, and before I go any further, I want to check with Dory and see if we have questions.
Haha, I unmuted myself quickly.
Yes, you did.
Yes, thank you. No, there are no questions other than we are still working with a 1/4 inch around each block. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. When I go to cut these out, in Block Piecer, what you see is the finished block. All right? When I go to, and that's the only, which is what I love about my Block Piecer, that is the only size I need to know. You notice on some of these, now this one is a finished block size, but if you look at the puppy dog, there's an extra 1/4 inch seam allowance on him. And he's kind of on an angle, and but the finished size is what we're looking at. So it's without the 1/4 inch seam allowance. But here's the beauty of my Block Piecer. When I go to cut these, and I'll select this block and go to my cutter and select whatever way I want to cut them, whether it's paper or my preference is oftentimes with my scan and cut or silhouette. No, I don't have both of them, but they both work the same way. And I can say I want to use my 12 by 12 inch mat. There's the black color, there's the red, and there are the 2 in there. You notice around each of these, there is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I don't have to worry about it because when it cuts them out for me, it cuts them out that way. If I do paper and print a template, let's just do letter size, it will print this with just the cutting line and the number. All right, so I know this is patch 11, this is patch 12, 9 and 10, even though they're actually all of the half square triangles are the same size in this block, but they wouldn't always be in all of the full square triangles, or all of the full squares, they're not triangles, are the same size. So it just prints the cutting line for your templates. So when I save this, I'll save it as a PDF because I selected paper, and we'll say it's my, I call this railroad cross block, and it will save it as a PDF, and I can print out those designs. So here's one page, and here's the next one, and by the numbers on the patches, I know which color it is. If I had put fabric in there, it would show the fabric as well in the file. And then I know what colors to cut those out, and that is the cutting line. And of course, if you've watched any of the webinars, you'll know if you prefer, you can lay down fabric and trim it as you go. So it just depends on the block. If I'm doing a scrappy block, I don't pre-cut them. If I'm doing a precision block with fabric and I have a limited amount of fabric, I may pre-cut it. If I'm doing, and I may do it with a template and my rotary cutter if it's a square or triangle, but if it's got more sides than 4, I will probably cut it out with my digital cutter, like a scan and cut or a silhouette. Okay. Does that answer the question?
It most certainly did. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Whoops. That's not where I want to be. Now, here's the other thing I want to show you that is a new feature in the software. I can take this block right here that I just created and do a file, save as, and I'll give it a name. Let's call it Railroad Cross. And I don't want to save it in a format for my sewing machine. I want to save it to my block library because I spent time creating this. I want to put it in my library. So I'm going to save it as a BLK. And from there, and here's your path. And I believe this is noted in the update somewhere. Is that correct? Or on?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I want to go to, oops. Oh, it takes me right to where I want to be, actually, because I'm in Program Data, G7 Solutions, My Block Piecer, Library, Quilt Blocks, and I made my own section in there called Tamara for my blocks. And then I click Save, and it saves it there for me.
Super.
So I know. So now all I have to do is open my Quilt Embellisher and you've seen me do that before. You open the file. Well, we'll do Quilt Embellisher real quick. Here's Quilt Embellisher.
Before you get going, we do have a quickie question.
Okay.
Thanks for showing us, our friend Christy said, thanks for showing us how to use 2 blocks to make a new block. Is there a limited amount of blocks that can be combined?
I haven't found it.
No, I haven't either.
I doubt it. You just want to get rid of the excess. But Christy, here's what happens. When you do that, let me get rid of this and turn on my backdrop, and this is the original block, you know, or the second block that I merged in. Don't count on your background in there because you only get 1 background per block. So I didn't use it, and you don't need it. But no, really, there's not a limit. I would recommend that you check size, you know, use the same size if you're using the same scale. And I may change my mind on that at a later date. just if I want to do things in a different scale, you could certainly do that. Very good question. Okay, so I was going to open up my Quilt Embellisher, which is in my apps under Inspiration Series, my Quilt Embellisher, and it's coming up as quickly as it wants to.
With a brand new screen.
I know, brand new screen. Okay, so here we go. And then I'm going to open a new, I'm going to close that because I'm online, and open up a new page. Go to my block library and look here. Oh, it's not there. I saved it. Oh, let me right-click and refresh. That's interesting because it was in, let's go to Perfect Embroidery Pro, and here I've got a new screen open. And this is for all of you who have Perfect Embroidery Pro as well. And we will also figure out what the problem was with Quilt Embellisher. But if I go in and go into open a block, I can bring up a block. Here you go, Tamara, Railroad Cross, 4-patch, say OK. I think that was my mistake is why it didn't show up. I saved it as a different format. This is the block format, but now it's a C2S file. And for those of you who have PEP and have never tried this before, and we'll address this in some later webinars, you have access to all of the other software right here on the far right-hand side of your screen. So here's Quilt Embellisher. I can select Quilt Embellisher. If I click on the block, it will bring up the block library. But if I click on the arrow underneath, then I can say, oh, I want to go to embellishments. I want to do whatever. If I select, let's select the white color right here. And if I click on Quilt Embellisher, then I could change that to a texture. And let's do this texture and say OK. And there you go. I can use all of the features of that in Perfect Embroidery Pro. So I don't have to save a file and reopen it. I have access to all of those right here in Perfect Embroidery Pro. Questions on that?
Nope, no questions on that. Apparently
Okay.
they followed. I know a lot of
Okay.
these ladies do have Perfect Embroidery Pro.
Yes, and I get that a lot. So use the advantages of it because not only can you use those for a quilt block, but you could take those embellishments, the advanced, stippling, and use that for a motif fill. I want to do this again with the file because I think I know what I did wrong. File, save as, and I'm going to save this as a block file, which is what I didn't do. And I will save it as, we'll just call it try again, and save it under Tamara. Click Save. Now, let's go into my Quilt Embellisher, which we still have open. I will click my block and refresh, and it's still not there. Okay, well, we'll work on that. I'm not sure why it shows up in Perfect Embroidery Pro and not here, but we will make sure that that's handled. Any other questions or comments, Dory?
Nope.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, I want to show you one other thing. For you gals who have or have Perfect Embroidery Pro, here's something that I prefer to do in Perfect Embroidery Pro. Let me minimize this. Here's I'm in block piecer there. Here we go. Here's my block. What I want to do is look at a whole quilt. I'm going to select this block, and then I'm going to use my repeat function. So I can set up exactly. Now I can do this in Quilt Embellisher and and Block Piecer, but I have to move each one individually. In here, with the repeat function, I can set up how many blocks I want across and how many blocks I want down, and I could flip everyone horizontally. Now vertically takes it kind of back the way it was, and then apply that and say OK, and it will show me my whole block, which is how I created the block that was on the front, on the display screen when we first signed up. You first logged into the webinar. And of course I assigned fabrics to each one of these, and you can do that as well just to make it a little bit more interesting and actually get a very good idea of the block that you're going to stitch or the quilt that you're going to make, and even go so far as to select it, and you can take it to my block piecer and select the cutter, and it will tell you exactly how many frames you need to cut for your block, and whether you're using a cutter or whatever, and print out the templates for you. You can also save this like I did, do File, Save as an image, and then bring it up as a backdrop in Quilt Planner to decorate it and all of that kind of thing. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go on, but I look forward to doing more block challenges with you guys. Send me your blocks. Again, that is at, let me bring up my design, blockchallenge@gmail.com. I would prefer a JPEG. Some of you have sent videos, which is great, and beautiful quilts, and I can try and pull a JPEG from that, but it's a little bit more difficult. So if you send me a JPEG or a PNG file, take a photograph of it, save it from Pinterest, whatever you prefer to do, just send it to me, and it may appear on a later Block Challenge webinar. So thank you all for coming. And Dory, do you have anything to add?
No, we did get quite a reaction from showing the repeat feature. Love it. They love it.
I love that, yes. And there's a lot more features if you have both. And if you're interested in seeing that, let us know, because we don't know really how many of you, I know several of you do, but not everybody. If you want to see webinars that involve PEP with the quilting software, let us know and we'll make sure they get included in future webinars.
Super. Thank you so much, Tamara. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dory. And look in the community to find answers to our issues tonight. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Dory.
Have a good evening.